everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Two, where we do reviews for episodes of TV shows, seasons of TV shows, or doing these full season non-spoiler after a season of television just wrapped. This week we're doing Nancy Drew season 3. For me, it's not bittersweet. It's not the end, but I'm just saying it's been a while. You know, had some reflection because Nancy Drew season 3 wrapped about a couple weeks ago now, and it's felt a lot longer. That and also these last 2 weeks of my life have been extremely long as well. I went into season 3 with, and also before I continue, this is a non-spoiler review, so I will not be spoiling any aspect of season 3. So if you yet to watch Nancy Drew season 3, don't worry, you will not be spoiled by anything here. But mainly, I went into season 3 thinking because Nancy Drew was the very first new show that we began covering episode by episode since What's in the Two's inception back in 2019, and the fact is, well, it's 2022 and What's in the Tube still going, and also Nancy Drew is still, as of right now, has not yet been canceled. We haven't gotten a season 4 renewal yet. None of the CW shows have been renewed yet. I'm very hopeful we will get to come back for another round in the future, but right now we just don't know anything. There's a Tom Swift spinoff, but that's all we know right now. I went into season 3 thinking they have to do something pretty different, or something that stands out, because Nancy Drew never was a Flash. It never was a Superman and Lois. It never was that big, audience attention grabber. It never was. Even Walker, which is like semi-new IP. It's been a long time since you've seen that. That has had an established fan base back from the 20th century era. Now going to the 21st century, you had that pullover. Nancy Drew, I've been aware of the novels and the books since I was a kid. I never really read one. I think I may have read a couple of chapters of one when I was in middle school, but that was really about it. And I'm always a big fan of mystery solving. I really have been. And ironically, about a couple of weeks ago, I think I watched, what was that murder? I watched the murder mystery, but I forgot what it was. But I'm always a sucker for it. It's always like one of my my guilty pleasures. I don't really watch as much because I don't want to get oversaturated by it. And also, it's also the case of Scooby-Doo, that Scooby-Doo is, by minor means, a mystery show at times, and I love that show. I love that that world to live in, where you have teenagers and young adults solving crimes. And so when Nancy Drew was announced as a concept for a potential CW show, I was like, okay, teen drama, attractive teenagers, young adults mixed in with mystery, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's do a review series for it. And I went into past the first 2 seasons as, this was good. This was good. It wasn't special, nothing to superbly recommend, nothing to write home about, but I was okay with it. I was, content with it. And, I was still happy to do these week to week. Going to season 3, it's a crucial season. You do 3 years of the same. Eventually you risk the formulaic aspect, because that's kind of like when the point's like, okay, we kind of know what this show is, so if someone decides to tune off, it can be the death sentence of a show. So you really have to be careful with what you do and the quality and the quantity of it. And season 3 solved both those problems in one sit around, where you cut down the episodes, you increase the quality, and even by the end, you're just baffled by, in a good way, on how great this show has become. Where for me, I consider Nancy Drew a great show after this season. It's always been a good show in my head, but it's now been a great show because of this season. This season is by far the best of the 3. It tells a tighter story. It focuses even more so on the characters and their relationships and what drives them to move forward into the future. As this season is mostly more about moving forward. And I said this in the season 3 finale review. This, at the tail end, kind of felt like moments of an Endgame, No Way Home type thing, where you go into that as it's not the end, but it's very much ending something familiar and beginning, hopefully, something new down the line next time around. Season 3, in a very short response, is by far right now the best season of the 3. Now, going into more detail about it, the first thing that kind of caught me off guard was the fact that a decent amount of CW shows this season was getting reduced from their normal episode order to 13. Now, normally, like when the pandemic happened, I wouldn't have been surprised, but in the pandemic, they kept going with the normal episode order. I know there was kind of conversation about let's just do 13, let's just make that simpler, but then they just kept going because like we got a comfort, we got a groove, nothing bad is happening, so let's keep going. Not all shows did that, but a good amount has. They felt comfortable, they felt safe to kind of do a few more. Now that you understand because the thing is that the COVID's not going away. It really isn't. It's sadly something that's going to be sticking around for, sadly, the rest of our lives. We're going to have to learn to live with it. So I think they went into the season thinking the same thing, that you can tell a better story without the expanded episodes, without an expanded cast. Where not a lot, but like a decent amount of not the fat. It's not a bad fat. It's more like you have 18 episodes or 20 episodes in Nancy Drew's case at times. You got to fill it up. You got to find a way to like keep, things interesting. This mostly felt like a core story between the 5 characters. Yeah, sure, you had your favorites like Ryan and Mr. Drew and their little friends around the way, but this mainly was a core story between the 5 of them. And, at the center, season 1, it was mostly Nancy kind of getting into her own in this new confusing time of her life where she's done with high school. She's had a career trajectory, and then she's kind of swept on it, and then she's kind of embroiled in this mystery with these 4 other teenagers and adults that mainly they would never have been friends in high school, or maybe even just naturally in life. Then they're kind of stuck together. In season 2, you develop that connection, you develop those bonds, and you make it something like a family. Not like a family. I wouldn't classify them as a family. More like a crew. Get it? Drew crew? Get it? This season was definitely about, this is the strongest this core characters have been. And it comes up a lot during the season that, they're together. That, they're like a family. And they know, but they also have to think about themselves. And, but they always push that aside for the sake of others. And I think everyone has that point when they're growing up, that you think what's the best for you to do is to be close to the people you care about. But at the end of the day, like, well, it's also about you. You have to figure out what you want to do and what you're going to do. And that was something that everyone kind of had to think about this season as well, especially as they come up with a brand new thread, which is, for the first time, we had a human antagonist, still in the mystical, magical, spiritual, supernatural realm that the Nancy Drew team has been facing at this point in time. And that was one of the my little nitpicks about the show in general, that the concept of me wanting to see a mystery each and every week was sadly derailed by the supernatural aspect of it. But in reality, it's kind of made the show stand out better. Like, you still have the original elements, you still have the core emotional feeling of this is a mystery solver, a teen sleuth, just embroiled in this modern era of like supernatural and ghosts and demons and ghouls. Like, those are prevalent in this role, and they've taken that fully now and have truly incorporated that into its DNA. Where finally to get to the point where like we can have a human antagonist, it definitely kind of makes it help stand out. Which Temperance, the villain of the season, we got to meet her at the tail end of season 2. I wouldn't say she's like, and I'm not gonna say she's a standout villain, but I think she's a very formidable threat for this team, and the way she outsmarts them, the way she's it's a tactics mindset between Nancy Drew and Temperance at times. But it's different. I wouldn't akin it to a Sherlock Holmes or a Moriarty. I really wouldn't akin it to that. Definitely isn't a Batman and Joker type ordeal as well. It's just something different in a good way. It's just these two people that they have their goals in mind and they're going to achieve them. They mixed in with Temperance elements of the gray conversation that has happened a lot in more recent media in terms of games and movies and TV shows. Anything that's anything that is an art form in terms of just expressing a story. For me, the gray aspect kind of came around during Last Jedi, even though I know a lot of people were a little bit iffy on that. The point is that if you really boil it down, there really is no good or bad. It's mostly one character, one person has their own motivation, and they believe they're right. They have people that believe they're right, and the opposing side are the threats. They're the villains. It's the whole, you're the hero of your own story type ordeal. And yes, Nancy Drew is the name of the show. It is the titular character, so for us, Temperance is the villain. And I'm not saying Temperance is a good person as well. She has done some pretty shady stuff, even at the end of season 2, not even going into what she has done in season 3. But she's very much at times a villain. She does really bad things. But you do have that gray side of her where it's like she has, I guess, somewhat, like, I won't reveal what her entire plan is, but her plan in the end isn't, it's beneficial to an extent, but it is going to cause consequences for everyone else. And it's the other conversation of, I'm doing me for me, and I'm getting what I want, and I don't care what anyone else thinks of it. And that is a decent standpoint to have in life, but then you have to start thinking about like everyone else and how would they would get to react to it. That's all I'll say about that matter. But Temperance is what the show needed. It definitely created a little bit more of like a actual suspense, where I went into the first 2 seasons with the threats like the Aglaria and the Hudsons, and I never really felt much more of a, like, this is a really big threat. I didn't feel the suspense. And I know, like, you're supposed to with these type of show. I just never did. I never got so scared that, is a character going to die? It never kept me on my toes where, like a show like The Walking Dead, where you, especially now, especially they're diving into like more, we're going to do something of our own ordeal, but still acknowledge the source material. You would have episodes where like you wouldn't even expect the death to occur, or you wouldn't expect this character to go out. I never got that feeling for Nancy Drew because it never was set up like that. You never went into like a Game of Thrones type situation where like the main character, like the person you assume is the main character is going to die early on. You never assume that. I never thought of that with Nancy Drew. I never did. I never had that feeling of like, I'm always on the edge of my seat. I never had that. And that's not to say all shows have to do that, but when it comes to this type of show, you kind of have to give it a little bit more of like that element to keep it going, because there's only so much you can do with the mystery element, especially for a TV show going into 3 seasons. There's only so much you can do, and thankfully, because of Temperance as a character and the situation she throws our heroes in, as well as the other minor adventures they go along the way, I felt that more this season than ever before. I was legit. I said this in the finale review, and this could be like a big like, oh, you gotta get to the finale moment, but like, no, every episode is really good at times. There are still the standard good episodes, and then that finale just really kicks. I didn't faint, but like I collapsed in like a jokey way because I was shocked. I was shocked over a Nancy Drew episode where I kind of had a feeling for it. You get that spark, but then when it really happens, you're just like, fuck, they went there and they got me. And that's a pretty good praise that in my opinion, that, not really much shows can do that. Even just like, even my top 10, like all-time favorite shows, like some of them don't even have those types of moments. It's just the story just keeps me intrigued and going and guessing. This was one, like, because I wasn't expecting that type of quality from the show. And it's not, again, I'm not trying to say it's a bad show. I'm just saying that I went into this show with not the highest expectations, and the expectations that I set for them has been very much okay. Especially like this season, again, focusing again on the characters, where this felt morely like we're really focusing on the core 5 and figuring out not what makes them tick, but what's keeping them thinking of what's next. Where you start up the season with Nancy now figuring out she kind of has feelings for Ace, and also dealing with this, where does she go from here type ordeal, because college seems to be really off the table right now. Nick and George, there's like a very big foreshadowing threat between them in terms of their happiness. How does that get impacted to them? What is Bess's purpose after being abandoned by the Marvins, and Ace just having to be eventually getting that feeling of like gaining that independence. There's just a lot for them to think about, and I began the season like already with that feeling of like, there is something that's going to change. Their change is coming, and for some of them, they're like perfectly content of just like living life like this, just being the mystery solving team that all works at the Claw and doesn't really get much money from it, and also somehow also not caring that the business is half the time closed because they're not there to keep it going. So that sort of thing. And then when you start to get into the meat of the season, and you start to figure out that, and also, first of all, shout out that they shaved off some of the, like, not the bad aspects of season 2, but like just some of like the things that are like, you didn't really need to introduce them. I understand why you bring them up, but a lot of like the season 2 fat definitely went away in season 3. I was actually surprised because for me, I wasn't thinking like, oh, COVID affected them. Like, definitely not. Like, if anything, that would have affected season 2 after season 1. But it fitting into season 3 to season 2 definitely was like, we're telling a tighter story. We're only putting in the characters we know are going to benefit the show. Like, for example, this isn't a spoiler because he's not in they broke up in the last season. Nancy's boyfriend, when she was kind of possessed by that demon at the end of season 2, that guy's not even involved. Like, you assume they would come back because like they've been so close with the Drew crew, especially at the start of season 3. Ace is still dating his sister Amanda. You assume that he'll still pop up once in a while. He does not. He really doesn't. It basically was like they written him off. He may come back for a cameo, but in reality, we are just abandoning that character, which is okay. That is perfectly fine. He served his purpose, and you moved on. There are some shows that like they do that for those characters. They're like, you know what, we're gonna keep them on board. Like Flash in season 4, like he introduced Ralph Dipfleet's character. He was a major component for the major threat of the season, the Thinker's Plan, and I was like, great. He served his purpose. He became this hero. We could leave it at that. Then you start season 5, and then it was mostly like, he was mostly comedic relief. Like they just try to shoehorn him in at the times, and that kind of didn't feel like, it felt kind of like a waste of space. No offense to the actor, no offense to the story that was given to him after season 4, but it didn't feel planned. It didn't feel well planned out, let's say. So I was very happy when they did that with a couple of other characters this season that you'll get to see, or not see, more specifically, or just how easy things were. But overall, like I love where all the characters went. I was actually surprised by some of the directions they went with, like how things were going to go, because they could have played the simplistic route, and they didn't. They kept them in interesting places to kind of like give them more story possibilities and keep them going in a potential 4th season. And they're going on like a very different path, because like when you're leaving high school, that young teenage mind, like you kind of have that feeling of like, we're going to stay together, or this is the path. And then you get a little older and you start to realize that isn't the path, that there is something else that could be done. And they all felt that at some point, at some form during the season, and it all worked in the end. It all worked. And there was a lot of moments where like they could have played the easy route, but they didn't. They played it unsafe, and it paid off. And that makes me happy that they're taking, I guess, the CW approach to like, they're taking a not a secure way of telling a story. They're allowed to take a little bit of risk. And that's what I liked, because, and I only mentioned it because like that was the thing for the first 2 seasons. Going to season 3, it felt more like, let's do some different stuff. Let's do something that the audience wouldn't expect. And it worked. It really did work, and I'm happy about that. I really am. Definitely the 13 episode order helped. Definitely telling that tighter story helped. Not focusing too much on miscellaneous mysteries, having everything focus on the main plot. Definitely help still keep it grounded and still kept it going. And by the time you reach that finale, and you realize how crazy it is, and how much you really can get into the story of this season, and how much you're just left gasping at the end, where you're surprised by the choices and you're left wondering what is next. Like, I cannot wait for season 4, if we get one. I really hope we do. I want to see what the next story is. I want to see what new type of characters we're going to see out of our core 5. I want to see all that. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that fresh start. I'm ready for that fresh revamp of the show. I'm ready. Season 3 gave you a little taste of what things were, and then a taste of what things could be, as well as saying goodbye to this chapter of the story. And hopefully we get to see what the next chapter is going to look like. We really do hope so. So to sum it up, season 3 of Nancy Drew is by far the best season of the show. It is by far the superior of the 3. Everyone fires on all cylinders. Kennedy McNeil delivers, I think, her best performance in the finale, and it just keeps you, you get the feeling of, I want to keep going. I want there to be more stories to tell, and I want these characters to keep growing. I want them to end up where they're gonna end up being, Because at the end of the day, at the end of the season, for all of them, they realized like there's no way back from where we started from. There isn't. They grew up, they changed, they evolved, and these characters are now the ones I'm interested in seeing when we do come back next time, hopefully. But for me, I give Nancy Drew season 3 some of the highest praises given Nancy Drew thus far. It is, again, the best by far. Hopefully, there will be more of the best to come next time around, if we get one. You can find Nancy Drew Season 3 on all the episodes right now on the CW app or the CW.com. I am 99% certain it will eventually drop on HBO Max in the near future, so you can go binge it out there. So, yeah, there you go. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Season 3 of Nancy Drew? Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. However, if you're wondering what is next for us in terms of Nancy Drew coverage, this is it for now. Right now, we don't have a word on Season 4 that hasn't been announced as of this recording. I do know we will do a Nancy Drew Season 1 spoiler-filled review when we come back, hopefully later this year, before Season 4 starts. I'll be rewatching that show again, seeing how things change up, how things grow, and also giving a full deep dive and we'll see how it goes. It's still something new. We'll get there. We'll get there. But again, this has been the end of this year's Nancy Drew coverage. It's been a lot of fun. It's been the most tightest. It's been another crazy ride for us as we been through so many changes. We've been through so many milestones for just for me personally, and also for the show. It's been great. I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for tuning in these 15 videos of Nancy Drew coverage. It was fun to add these to the playlist, and I can't wait to see what more we get to do, hopefully. Tom Swift is still a show. Casting is keep going, so when that show does come out, we will do a review series for that. So this universe will return. We will return to the Drew universe eventually. But hopefully we get both Tom Swift and Season 4 of Nancy Drew to enjoy in the future. But until then, this has been Joe here. Thank you for watching What's in the Tube from ActionX. If you want to see more of us, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next review is live. Please also like, favorite, share this review if you want to. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates we may have for the channel. Please check out our brand new channel, The Collection Compass. And again, for all you members of the Drew crew, thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for your kind words. And until we meet again in Season 4 or in Tom Swift or wherever life may take us next, thank you so much. But until then, peace out.